Council meeting of 25th order will start by pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
May I have a roll call, please?
Council President Black,
Present.
Councilperson Day.
Here.
Councilperson Zabaka.
Here.
Councilperson Souter. Here. Councilperson Phil.
Here.
Also in attendance, City Solicitor William Barthel. City Treasurer Janet Carlin. City Solicitor Max Walton. And City Finance Director.
Actually, Courtney is the finance.
Courtney
Okay,
Taylor.
pass that buck off real quick. That was quick. Welcome, Courtney.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch Courtney's last name.
I was just going to ask her to introduce herself.
Taylor?
Courtney, have you met the council or
No, not everyone. So I
you
did
want to just give
practice.
yourself a quick introduction?
I'm Courtney Taylor. I am replacing Kathy Walls when she's retired. I started in March. So I've been getting used to doing everything in the office. And looking forward to working with you guys.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, under old business, recommendation of tourism coordinator, Mr. Raquel.
Yeah, just an update for council. As you know, we've kind of been working on this for a while. An understatement, and we'd interviewed a number of folks over the past several months. We had a couple of very good candidates. I've recommended that Mr. Platt, you and Ms. Souter had interviewed with a couple of candidates, and my recommendation is Sarah Crawford, who everybody has. You have her resume here, and I see Sarah's here with us tonight, and so that's kind of where we are. That's my recommendation. I know you, Mr. Platt, and Ms. Souter might want to have some comments based on your interview and experience with Sarah.
Okay, well, when we interviewed Sarah, I was impressed with her local contacts in the area with the Wilmington Visitors Bureau, which of course impacts this area as well. Contacts at, for example, some of the hotels on the riverfront. So with the concierge, if visitors are looking for something to do, you know, she can encourage them to see us here in Newcastle. She's done work for a number of organizations in Wilmington or businesses, and I checked with one person who had worked with her who was very pleased. So I think she'll be a good fit.
I totally agree. I think I like the idea, like you said, the hotels, the bike trail, tying it all together, just getting people day tripping that we normally wouldn't just go after, you know, people spend a weekend here before a conference or something. Sarah, would you like to just say, well, you're not going to field any questions from council, but just you'd like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I am Sarah Crawford. I'm currently the director of Wilmington Business Center at Troy Capital. My background is actually, ironically, in fashion design and marketing. Over the years, I have pivoted and I've moved more into a branding, marketing space, really for small business owners and for the city of Wilmington, for the community. I'm really just acting as an activist and making sure that I'm able to connect people to the right resources and the right people that they need.
Thank you, sir. Going back for the newer people on council, this has been going on about a year now. How it worked last time was the way the resolution was written is Mr. Barthel makes his recommendation, did meet a couple other council people, and basically we just have to give the go ahead to Mr. Barthel to go ahead and firm up the contract and go from there. So I'll make a motion that we award this contract to Sarah Crawford.
And a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I just had a question.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, it wasn't on the agenda. Can we do this first?
Yeah, there's something
First item on the agenda.
under old business.
Okay. I'm sorry, the agenda I had online did not have it on it. I see the one I printed today did.
Apologize.
Yep.
Quick
I
question.
too.
So before voting, can we ask questions because
We can, I mean, it's up to you.
hi Sarah, nice meeting you. Thanks for coming tonight. I just got your resume, so sorry if it's stated already here. Do you have a grant writing experience?
I do.
And can you elaborate on that a little bit? Give me an example of maybe where you,
So I, at the Women's Business Center, that is a SBA, a Small Business Administration grant that is granted to the whole organization, Tractor Capital. So I write the grant every year in addition to, sourcing and researching grants to fund the program, so it's a match program. So I pretty much do that. I've been doing that for about 8 years.
awesome. My only other question is, in work in Wilmington, have you worked with multiple organizations at the same time, kind of trying to see, you know, where they can lean on each other and then you utilize resources?
Absolutely. What happens typically is one organization will be looking for a specific resource. They don't have it, so it's my job to kind of build that partnership or build that alliance so we can work together. So that we don't have to recreate the wheel. We can just kind of rely on the other organization or other partner.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
We did have a vote, maybe it was a little quick, so, all in favor?
I,
All right, the ayes have it. Sarah, congratulations. Like I said, Mr. Barthel will be in contact with you. And it's good this council can finally hire a tourism director. Yes, Sarah, you, listen, you don't have to stay if you don't want to, however you want.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to read ordinance 538 to amend this Newcastle City Code 230211 Downtown Gateway District regarding multi-family dwellings. Motion to read it. Okay. Motion to read ordinance 538, an ordinance to establish a new chapter 77 in the Newcastle City Code. But 538 was
First one.
right. The second one is 539. That's right. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. 539, relating to the election of candidates, declaring requirements. Motion to read the ordinance. Anybody fail? That's, you know, that's kind of amazing because this was actually recommended by the city solicitor to do this. We had no rules on how candidates file. And it cost us a lot of money because it was hodgepodge last time around. And one candidate was allowed to file and one candidate was told no. Mr. Zeltz, I think you were told no, you couldn't file by email, according to our secretary. And I got a letter from Mr. Robinette. So we're not treating people equally. And I just want the city solicitor to weigh in on this.
So I haven't been here that long.
Okay.
I know that there was a huge dispute. And so the purpose of the ordinance was if you're gonna have requirements and have them. If there are objections to the ordinance or the requirements that are written, you know, we can have a discussion about that. But ultimately, this is what I understood the practice has been, and we tried to codify that. If you're not gonna go with this particular ordinance, and I need some help from you, and you need to tell me how you wanna do it, because we need to have a rule, like, we can't, I wasn't involved in, there was a board of elections issue, I was not involved in that. My predecessor, who's now in the Supreme Court, was involved in that. I don't want that to happen again.
Is it appropriate to comment?
Sure, yeah, please.
I'll say that the reason I didn't second this particular ordinance is not because I object to the idea of codifying our election registration requirements. It's because this one seems to have been put together very quickly. It says people have to present sufficient proof. It doesn't define sufficient. It doesn't say who is empowered to judge what is sufficient. And I think if we're going to revise this ordinance, we need to do it properly and thoughtfully. And I would certainly be willing to entertain it in the future if we fleshed it out a bit.
Well, if that's the case, we can read it. Then we have a second reading.
I'll have a comment.
Okay,
Go ahead.
if we read it tonight, we read it tonight. We put our ideas together at the public hearing. That's what these public hearings are for, to take input. And then the resolution or the ordinance is written for the council meeting. Because as of right now, we have zero rules on how a candidate files.
Well, we're governed by state law, everyone.
We're home rule charter.
Let me answer that. Yes, you're governed by So you're governed by the elections code dealing with municipal elections. That provision doesn't say anything about the process by which you submit or, to submit to be a candidate. Yeah, so, not hung up on what the requirements are. If you need some additional thing about who or what, right? I think that's what you're doing.
This just feels really rushed because we have to have a special election for a new mayor. And the system we've been having has generally worked. There was a dispute the last time, I agree. But I think if we're going to do this, we should do it more thoughtfully than we have time to do it, to get it in place for the mayoral election, which seems to be the intent.
So one of the difficulties is that we have to get it done, right? So I'm glad we're having this conversation. We have to get it done in time so we don't get near the deadline.
No, but if we work on it in July and August and pass it, we don't have another, after the special mayoral election, we don't have another municipal election until 2025.
That's correct.
So we have some time to do it thoughtfully and work it out. And I would be happy to see us do that.
I agree to that. The reasoning about the, not, just a little more vagueness on the, who decides and stuff, what's appropriate. And also my other thing is, I've spoken about this during my candidacy is, I would like to see more forms being submitted online in general. So this being submitted in person is going against my stance on that. So that, that's a comment that I have, and, especially kind of got it during COVID, we've seen people work from home, right? So full time. So I think, I'm open to exploring and seeing what that means for Mr. Bartel in the office. How does that have to process and stuff? But, I play soccer league for the county and I have to provide my social security number, 4 digits or something. So there's ways of, verifying who's who, I guess, if there's a reason, behind that. So just, I'm open to all of this, but to Ms. Sauter's point, a little more conversation about it.
I see no reason why it can't be done electronically. I registered to access my internal revenue account online. Surely if you can do that, we can arrange a system for filing for candidacy on.
One of the questions, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I was just gonna say, I agree with what's been said. I think we should be opening it up to mail and email and electronic submissions or drop off. But I also think it would be nice if we got some recommendations from the Board of Elections.
Absolutely.
I think the proper way to do this, to take all personalities out of it, is for the city to collect the nomination or the applications to run, and they turn them over to the Board of Elections and let the Board of Elections vet the candidates. Whether they need proof or whatever they need, and it takes the personalities out of it. It takes the he said, she said out of it. And I think it just makes it easier. If the application is not complete, they're not good.
Careful on that.
Mhm.
The Board of Elections is supposed to be, and this is under the Delaware State Code, not your code, supposed to be an appellate sort of authority. So for example, if there's a dispute about whether or not some of it is brought to them, it's like a court of appeals. You probably need to have somebody else, be that somebody in town hall or somebody, but it shouldn't be the Board of Elections who makes that in the first instance, because they're the appellate body, right? That's how you would think, somebody make the decisions, you appeal it to the Board of
But
Elections.
spinning off of what Mr. Day just said, that to me is even more reason to wait and do it after the special mayoral elections, because we do it now, almost 2 years before the next municipal election. There are no personalities, there are no candidates. We're simply looking at what's the best way to do this without getting into who, what, when kind of issues that this seems to be spinning off from.
Well, no, because I mean, even one of the suggestions the other solicitor made was, what if that email doesn't go through or it goes to spam? So now it's not found till Monday morning. Then what happens?
What if I drop mine off at the city count or the city building though, and then they say they can't find it, and I don't have any receipt that I dropped it off?
We can very receipt. I mean, I'm not saying.
I got a receipt that I emailed something though. I can prove that.
But if it's not received.
I can show that I sent it to the correct email address.
Right.
I got proof.
So, okay, let's just put it away. We have no rules. That's what I want to make that perfectly clear. There are no rules, no verifications, nothing, correct? As of right now.
The other thing I wanted to add is, one, I don't know what you just mentioned about me being able to send something electronically for being a candidate. None of that is true. I
That's what
never,
Kim said.
well, I've never tried to send anything
No,
electronic.
you asked it to be sent to you. Who answered for him? That was pretty nice.
So I might have asked electronically to receive the paperwork because I couldn't get there that day. I can print it out and fill it out. But I never asked for anything to be provided to be sent in electronically. So
You just said you asked for it because you couldn't get there that day and you were told no.
to get the candidacy,
Correct.
it was immediately. So
Correct.
so that's all you're referring to. That's fine.
So you were treated differently than other candidates.
To get the packet,
Yes,
I don't know if I was treated differently or not.
you were told no and other candidates were told yes.
So, but I have.
Well, so, I mean, so
So,
we don't treat people fairly?
well, there's plenty of time to get things in. I went, and I had someone pick it up for me. So, second thing is, definitely a huge concern of, in-person for 2023 for an electronic world. We definitely need to come up with some kind of means to electronic, provision to provide, that someone can file.
Fair enough, on the budget. No, I'm sorry. A resolution,
That's the election year.
resolution 2023-18, a resolution approving August 5th, 2023 as a date for a special election for the mayor. Whereas the city, where Newcastle City Charter provides a special election to be held in the event of the office, president, council, or members of council may be vacated in excess of the 6 months before the regular election of scheduled city election. Whereas special elections is to be held no sooner than 60 days from the date of vacancy and no longer than 90 days from the vacancy, as determined by city council. Whereas the mayor of the city of Newcastle became vacant May 9th, 2023, and whereas the city council proposes August 5th, 2023 as the date of the special election. Therefore, the city council hereby approves August 5th as the date for the special election for mayor. All in favor?
I
Aye. On the budget, Mr. Barthel, you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Platt. Real quick, we got everybody's budget out to you a week ago, so obviously you've had an opportunity to review the minutia, if you will. What I'd like to do is just point out to council some of the highlights of the budget that's contained within your budget, I should say. So within there, we've requested from the state community reinvestment funds $1,465,000 for Queens Court, Kingsway from 10th Street to its terminus, School Street from 9th to 10th Streets, and Buttonwood Avenue from Meehan Avenue to Railroad Avenue. Now, as I mentioned, we've asked this as a grant. It has to go to the legislature, and basically we'll know by July 1 whether we have approval of the full amount, a partial amount, what have you. But you know, I'm comfortable in saying that, I should say I'm confident in saying that, I think we should be awarded these funds for these projects. The other projects contained within the budget, as I mentioned at the last council meeting, is a dog park for $20,000. We did put in a mobile stage for $75,000. This was something that had been discussed with the previous council a few months back. I put in we have $65,000 for Chestnut Street lot, mill and overlay, the 3rd Street extension. Of course, we have our tourism director, the $50,000 for that position. And then we have $70,000 for police cars. And basically what that is, again, for the new folks, and to remind the other folks who are on council, when we allocated these funds, there was $350,000 that was allocated out of ARPA money for the next 5 years to be allocated annually to police cars. Okay, so obviously we're just taking $70,000 out of that allocation for this year. We, just as an update, we have 2 cars that should be delivered in the next couple of weeks, hopefully here. They're in the state, they're just doing the aftermarket stuff on it. And then we have 2 new cars, which will be coming sometime in the next fiscal year. But this is this is an aggregate amount or an amount that goes to the aggregate amount of our annual cost for police cars. And so I just, those are pretty much the projects that I thought I'd bring to your attention. Obviously, I would imagine you have other questions regarding the details and the rest of the budget. One thing I will also mention, just on a side note, our garbage truck was delivered today. Okay, and out of that, that had been allocated $270,000 out of ARPA money for that from the previous council. There's an additional cost to that for up to $19,000, which was not a part of what they had ordered initially with the truck. But anyway, that was delivered today, so that should be out on the street in the next week or so. Well, hopefully in the next day or so.
Hey, Butler, you want to start with any questions?
Okay, I mean, I went through, I have quite a few things, but I'll try to hit some of the high spots. I guess I'd actually like to start at the back with the revenue part instead of lining the expenses, because some of the things have some big changes. So this is on page 23. Two of them, I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure I've read it correctly. The first one, the trustee appropriation. It shows year to date, 168,750, budgeted amount 225. Now I'm guessing that since what's missing is exactly 1/4, that's because they pay quarterly and we haven't gotten the final quarter payment. Okay. And the same thing for the MSC. Okay. Oh, in the, let's see, a few more lines down, interest, other. We received $69,261.54 in interest this year, but we're budgeting $35,000. Now, I know we have reserved some of the ARPA money, approximately $2 million. So isn't that going to produce more than $35,000 in interest?
See that there's asterisks there too, so I figured there
It
was a
would be.
note for that or something.
Yeah. But we don't have the asterisk, so.
The asterisk is the percentage,
Ah.
doesn't work, divided by zero.
Because it,
Produces
that just
percent-
means system.
Yeah, that's
does
not
not
necessarily,
produce.
yeah,
That's a pretty big gap that could be used if it's reasonable to anticipate that we'll get more interest. There are things that we could budget for that. I mean, is that reasonable or am I incorrect?
Well, in my opinion, I think it was more a conservative number, not knowing if the interest rate was gonna remain high all year long and how much of the million that it's gonna be left. Once
As we start spending it.
we're already starting to spend
Well,
almost $1 million of it. in
Well,
the-
we were awarded 2.8. We've
Nine.
allocated approximately 800,000, so that leaves about 2 million that we haven't done any allocations for. I know I have recommended that this be held until we know what we may have to pay towards our share of the sea level rise protections. Obviously, that's not been passed by council, but if they should agree with me on that, then that money's going to sit there for a while. In terms of the interest rates, from everything I hear, the best we can expect is that the interest rates won't go up anymore, but they're probably not going to go down unless we have a recession or some major problem. Obviously, I'm not an economist, but I know what I read, so.
That's a conservative number. And if you feel that you want to raise that number or
Well,
whatever.
I mean,
then,
it's less, it's about half of what we received this year. 69 to 6, a little less than half. So I would think we could raise it to perhaps 50,000 or 55,000 without, risking too much. Throw that out there for everyone else. This is just a
We can't,
first
right,
pass, right? So we're not settling on
But
anything. at
you
this
just can't raise it without putting something into expenses, correct?
Well,
Does it have
there's
to be-
plenty of
okay.
suggestions for
Okay.
that too.
Okay.
I skipped back to this part because it just seemed reasonable to me to start with the income side, because then you can spend it more easily than you can bring it in. Oh, and again, I think I know the answer, but I want to clarify the next item, insurance reimbursement, we're projecting 0, even though we got 15,943. Is that just because unless we have an expense for an insurance claim, we don't get anything. So that's not all balances out. Yeah. If we got an insurance claim, it would be because we'd had to spend the money to
Correct.
fix a damaged vehicle or whatever. And the next one, miscellaneous income general fund. It jumped from $2,847 last year to $24,907 this year. And we're projecting 1,000. Is there something unusual that popped up this year to generate that kind of income? And is it something that's going to repeat or not?
Just in April. We received, a one-time payment of 22,414. I'd have to go back and look up the details for that. But it wasn't just like an overall increase. It was a one-time deal, so I have
Okay,
to
well,
find that,
I mean,
that batch.
And it's
It
I
only
see in the
anticipated.
past 4 years,
was unintended.
it was always under $3,000. So, so this is a big jump. And I just wondered what, and since it's miscellaneous, it's hard to tell.
And that was a payment that I believe Diane just got in and she asked us, should I put this to miscellaneous? And I cannot remember what that was to you.
I do remember her saying that.
Yeah, we didn't have a place for it, but, and it was a one-time,
So it was
Same, yeah.
probably one time.
yes, it's definitely a one-time deal, but I have to pull up the,
All right, Kathy, thank you. And then finally, for the expense and balance sheet side, the last two items, balance carried forward, unreserved, restricted balance carried forward, and unreserved fund carried forward. It's $280,000 in the restricted and $339,407 in the unreserved. Where's the rest of the ARPA money? Does that not show up on here because it's special or?
It's not all ARPA money.
Well, no, I'm not asking if this is ARPA money. I'm asking where the ARPA money is.
well, the ARPA money has not been shown as revenue yet until the auditor will book that. And I believe he's gonna be booking it into fiscal year 2022.
Okay,
When he does his adjustment, it will go in fiscal year 2022 because it was actually received by us.
and so
As a
then. it'll come
liability,
into
and then
this.
he'll put it
Okay.
in, it'll show in the audit as the revenue,
So it's
and then
not,
it'll be funds carried forward
okay,
when you use them.
okay.
So along those lines, what is this restricted fund?
The 280 in the restricted funds are specific ARPA money that Bill has already talked about. It's gonna go into this year's budget to cover some expenses.
I got you. And then how about the unreserved fund?
That's basically part of your fund balance that you brought forward to balance this budget.
Okay.
It's not specifically restricted to any expenditure.
Particular expense.
Yeah, it just balances your budget.
And in terms of how to spend that money, if we were to raise the estimate for some of these revenues. I mean, for example, on the requests, the grant requests, page 10. The Goodwill Fire Company asked for 30,000, we list 15. Well, there's 15 if we had extra money that I could see spending. And the Historical Society asked for 15 and we gave them 5. Again, that's another possibility. So that would be 25,000 that I think could easily be spent. And I'm sure there's other things that other people have in mind, but I don't want to take up all the time, so stop now.
So just so we're clear, so out of that, the interest adjustment, we noted the number of 15,000. Is that pretty much what you're discussing?
It's a total of 20.
No, I know, but you said an additional 15 out of
Oh.
the interest,
Oh, great, because I suggested
So I guess
raising.
if you're gonna spend additional funds, we need to keep a rolling.
Yeah, I guess I thought since this is our first pass, that we'd go through and make these suggestions, and then I assume this is all in like a spreadsheet. You plug in the changes and it does all the arithmetic, right? No,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
if we've changed, changed this projected income and that projected expenditure, if those things are all plugged in, then your spreadsheet would spit out the bottom line, right?
Right, but I would write it down to put it in my spreadsheet.
Right,
So
right.
you know what you're talking about.
So. Okay. I don't know if
Mr.
anyone-
Buck, take a shot at it.
On a page 22, while we're talking about revenue, I think that's fine. Is it? I'm just looking at the annual, I've not seen an amount lower than 9,000. Would it be appropriate to, project that to 9 going forward?
Which are
What
you?
is it?
Special trash on page 22. If you're seeing the actual on the bottom, it's never been lower than 9,000, but it's projected at 7
On your.
throughout the
revenue,
years.
27.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just asking, is it appropriate to move it to 9? Is there a reason, for 7? Is it just being conservative?
We did it also too, based upon during COVID, as you can
Mhm.
see, we had a lot of special pickup. People
Okay.
were home cleaning out their homes.
Clean up basement.
Yeah, right. And so now whether what that additional 9,000 that we have now would still be a leftover function of that, probably not. I mean, if you wanted to take it up, I don't think it's unreasonable, but I don't think taking it up. Again, I think what you saw during COVID, you can see those 2 years, those 2 were outliers as well.
No, I was talking about
No,
prior
I
years
understand.
too, not going,
Right.
below 9, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's not in the
Right.
grand scheme of things, a lot of money, but I just wanted to see if there's a reason why it's kept at 7. Similar thing for hack applications on page 21. So, I'm just also following a pattern of the last 5 years and, there's once again, more applications recently for obvious reasons, but should this be closer to 100,000 is my question.
Page 21.
Page 21, and we're talking about building / hack application. So the lowest year is 2019 with 108, and then other years are about 200,000, and then last 2 years are a little higher than that.
Mhm.
Right.
So that would be,
Right, it's built right.
that would be at least another 30,000 there, potentially.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you could, again, we look at it and, I mean, if you look at the 2. I'll push ahead to 236. I think the 193 and the 406 in particular, again, a lot of construction work was done.
Mhm.
So that it's not just hack, it's building out,
Mhm.
and it also is predicated upon the number and the size of obviously the permits and the projects that are being completed.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things we've done, and I know you're not aware of this, nor Mr. Zel's aware of this, but we've historically, the past few years, we've had mid-year budget reviews to kind of address some of these more uncertain, well, keep council up to date on where we are
Mhm.
with our expenditures and our income, but also to then offset, or you have an opportunity, say mid-year, December, January, to look at these again and adjust your budget in that regard. Now, if you think this is too conservative and you wanted to do something to increase that, I mean, it works both ways. You can
Yeah.
increase it, and then if we don't get it, you can offset it in mid-year as well.
Mhm. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Fair.
Yeah, so.
I'll keep going through my list. Oh, yeah, so this is just a question for you, Mr. Martell, for the BOH line on 19, page 19, security line. I haven't meeting security. I haven't seen that for other boards. Is that there a reason why they have a security line and not other boards? Is that something we should budget for the other boards as well?
Yes, it is.
At least I haven't seen the security line for the other ones. Maybe there's.
Planning commission, the security for their meeting have been posted to professional or contract services. And then Board of Health has one, and I believe PAC is under mayor and council. Mayor and council has a security line, and so
Okay.
there's other commissions that if they didn't have a specific line, then we just put it under the mayor and council meeting security, but then we're gonna separate them out for next year.
And we did discuss that.
I just want to make sure everybody has a security line.
No, it's a good question. And we did discuss this as a part of our project because it isn't consistent. But yes, we had to include it in with the other commissions.
Makes sense. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Then page 18. Professional development and training for PC. So is this a request from the committee, or is this just something that we're just projecting? And the reason I'm asking that is given that 2022 is potentially can be updated, given it's a 5-year between the comp plan, and we have some of the, zoning questions that are being brought up even tonight, right? That it might be a good time for them to go through a training. So I don't know if we can ask them for a better, more precise quote, and might be something we do in December, January, I don't know, but just that, but.
Part of what we incorporated, and okay, so two separate things. We did talk, I wish Max were here. We did talk to him about doing a board of adjustment special training. But also incorporated in that too, as in addition to that was, which the emails you guys all got about the FOIA training and the ethics training. That was, we put that under a different line item. But yeah, I think they just had, board of it, you're talking about, I'm thinking about planning.
Planning just had a presentation from Unity, but I don't think it's costing them anything, but I just wanted to make sure that, their
we could
request
add
is,
that, yeah.
okay. I don't know how much that is, it's just really the chair of the committee. The page 17. Line, city solicitor, the third line from the bottom. My question here is, should we budget this at 80 or 85? Once again, this is my first time around, so just,
No, good question. So what we did was, last year we had significant, legal expenses that were, again, mostly unanticipated. And then we also had, in changing our law firm, we had duplication. We had additional legal expenses as a result of the last election. And, we continue to have, there's other things that are happening right now in the works in regard to, there's been a challenge to the Board of Adjustment decision back in December, I believe. So we're incurring additional legal service costs there. And, Mr. Slaka, this was something that we talked about. I mean, it is this year, it is significant. I will say this, our former solicitor was at $275 an hour. Our current solicitor is at $300 an hour. So it's not that much of a significant increase, relatively speaking. But like I said, this year we just had a lot of legal expenses. I mean, certainly it could be added to, but I think we're looking at it in that we would go back more to hopefully a normal.
we can revisit that again, either mid-year or end of the year. It's
Right.
not, that explanation is perfect. Thank you so much. I'm putting your brain in overtime here. The line on the same page for workers' comp, so second line from the top. It just seems much lower than prior years, so it's just I'm sure it's just a simple explanation, but
Yeah, I noticed that one too.
the 2,851, sorry, and I should be probably, am I supposed to state it for public?
You can also get line numbers sometimes, that's the word, like, we're here, like,
But that doesn't
1 0.
help us very much.
It won't help the public any now.
Okay, sorry, guys.
Right. Right, we actually received a credit because of the,
We belong to the consortium,
right,
DFIT.
right, we belong to DFIT and our numbers were, and the numbers through the whole organization allowed them to offer back a credit to the participating municipalities and cities. And our credit was
Almost 70,000.
like 70,000.
So that's what reduced us to 2,000.
Right.
Correct. And then based on that, what it would have been, we took the 75 as a,
Right.
without the credit.
And we don't get that every year.
No.
No.
It's an actuarial thing that they do. I mean, I can't say specifically or definitively every 5 years, but it's an actuarial thing that they do in conjunction with the state. I mean, the state has to look at what the numbers are. They are monitored and regulated by the state. So if, as a group, we have better numbers and payout, that type of thing, then they're able to give back a credit. And that's really one of the benefits of belonging to GFIT as opposed to belonging to, say, a state group, which, you don't have that opportunity, so. But it's a whole program. I mean, it's a whole safety program that they offer and that we take advantage of, and that, pretty much all the municipalities in the program are required to take advantage of. And the result of that is the opportunity to show better numbers from claims numbers, which then gives us the ability to get a credit like that.
Makes sense. Thank you. Next is page 16. The line is. Sorry, guys, battery park porta potties, so 10,901, then 4,385. I see that this amount hasn't been utilized since 2020, clearly because for obvious reasons. But we're budgeting still for the next year. So I was wondering if that amount,
Really up to council if you want to put it in there.
no, I just wanted to see if we can move that amount to the actual bathrooms in Battery Park. For, little upgrade to them. Because we're budgeting 2,000 for porta potties that don't even exist now.
Right, well, when we went through. Again, when we went through, we had them out there and then we went through the pandemic. So we would move them. I mean, to clean them and take care of them and what have you, we just decided not to do it. We probably should have put them, we could have put them out last year again, we didn't. As far as paying for the actual that's a trustee expense.
Oh, okay.
And so that would be something that the trustees would,
So was this the ones that were like at the parking lot at on the?
well, you had one, you brought one in for the ships, the tall ships.
Well, we bring them in for
Right,
special
right,
events,
and then you did have the one down at the parking lot down at below Dobbins.
below Dobbins. Because that one was there all summer, I think, because of the people fishing from there.
I believe so.
And then I know we bring them in short term for special events.
Well, the special event thing would be on as basis, and that typically is favored by the event.
By the
If I
event.
understand what you're,
Right,
So on page 14, the predator termite pest control, so line 10,304, 18060. For the current year, we haven't utilized the fund. I just wanted to check in why.
The bill just came in May.
It's happening.
June.
Perfect.
and you can see we we had an increase in that, so the percentage from a dollar amount for next year, we raised it in line.
Yeah, I saw that. I was
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that I figured it's end of the year.
Right.
Yes,
It's not
so
but-
annual.
Mhm. Page 11, first line election expenses. Just wanted to ask you guys whether then I'm gonna. Budget that needs to be page 11, sorry. The budget for 2024, that need with the special elections now be addressed and increased.
but that would be the only election in this special year.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure that this is.
That's
Starting
what
with
that
the election.
4,000 is on the budgeted amount.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's for the special election.
Okay, perfect.
And that costs the same to run as a full election. Do we rent the same number of machines or?
I don't know.
I was just.
I don't know. It's a great question, and I don't know that answer. Until we've never really gone through this before. I would suspect, I'm not sure. This is something we're gonna have to talk to the Board of Elections about and talk to the county about and see what their recommendations are. So
Okay, I mean, it's
know.
not a huge amount of money, so.
No, well, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm guessing this is on page 10, economic development activities. I'm assuming the increase. The reason why 50,000 is not spent for 2023 is the position that we were talking about. Okay. So that's line 10,301 for the public. Sorry, guys, I'm almost done.
Sorry.
Take time.
Take your time.
Page 9, handicap curb ramps. So line 10,205, 474, 46. Is this a state program or is this city?
I'm sorry, where are you on page?
So handicap curb, 9, sorry.
All right, so no, it's a city program that we've implemented a bunch of years ago, and we have. I want to say somewhere about 75%, give or take, don't quote me on that, of our of our curbs within the city have been converted to handicap accessible. We put these numbers in here. Now, I mentioned earlier that we're doing $1.5 million in road projects. Okay, when we do a road project and you do a certain amount of that project, you have to do the curb. You got to bring the curbs up. In these particular instances, the projects that we have here, to be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly how much of that will incur us changing over the curbs to handicap curbs. But we put this in here because in case we don't, we want to continue to try to, we're very anxious to get 100% of our curbs handicap accessible. And that's why that 25 is in there.
So, sorry, go ahead. I was just wondering if this is one of those activities where it's in, 25,000, we can mid-year perhaps move towards, and I know this is a weird request, so I'm sorry, guys. I know it's not city's jurisdiction, but some of the payments across the bricks, in historic section of the town are, there's misalignment. I know the owners are supposed to do that, but could that be possibly utilized for some of the cases where they are endangering public because
On private property or just on the city right away,
on
right?
sidewalks?
Uh,
So that it's still
That-
being utilized for
right.
something, for.
I think the answer to that is yes, but I think. We had a housing program through the trustees. I think it was $2,500 that they had allocated for folks who were who had accessibility to the tax. The senior tax,
Senior
right, the senior discount. And none of that was utilized. That said, I certainly think that type of discussion is a good one to have. I think though, then you have to involve your solicitor in that too, because as to when you start spending money on those types of things that aren't necessarily, that people can afford it themselves. And all I'm saying is, yeah, it's probably something you can discuss, but I think you have to discuss it in a wider, with
I
more
totally
context.
understand there's a legal
Does that make
thing
sense?
behind it, but here's an example why I'm asking that, because it's appropriate already, so it's already budgeted, right? So, for a certain purpose, I understand that. My father-in-law is legally, blind, basically, so he comes to Newcastle, loves Newcastle, but oftentimes just trips on either bricks or those little water, meters or whatever they're called, that are, on a different level with it. And he's always, telling me this is not compliant, and I keep telling him, it's really, it's a challenge, right? So, that's the reason why, this is in my head always kind of elevated. as a
No,
concern.
let me just expound upon that too, because years ago we had presented to council, Mr. Losco was a solicitor, a concern from a lawsuit perspective.
Yeah, that's,
Right,
that's my
which I
concern,
assume
yeah.
is what you're referring to. And we had said, okay, if you're gonna do sidewalks, you need to bring them up. The resident needs to bring those sidewalks up to ADA compliant. And there's certain stipulations for that. And we rolled that out, I believe, in 2017 or 18, and then I think it was brought up again last year. So maybe in the context of what you're talking about, you could revisit that, because we believe that it's just a matter of time before we get sued. And we really just tried to tighten up. Now, there was concern from residents that we were going to go out and be sidewalk police and say, okay, you've got to do this. Now, you could combine that with what you're talking about, Mr. Sabaka, and have something along those lines, or we were just basically saying, hey, if you're going to renovate your sidewalk, you have to do it up to a certain code. And I certainly think that certainly is a great, something what you're suggesting would be a great way to segue into revisiting that whole thing again.
Why would it only be downtown?
Oh, not only. I was just thinking
You
because
said
of bricks.
bricks,
So
but.
right on the
there's
other side of
cracks
my
in-
house is
There's
the,
cracks and sidewalks all over this
Absolutely.
town.
not, I would
Okay.
think that would be just a elevated priority because of the foot traffic, but I don't
There's foot
think.
traffic on every sidewalk.
I think Buttonwood to Travisville, it should be a citywide program, definitely.
Well, and that ordinance, or the change to the ordinance would have encompassed the entire Swiss policy.
Well, that was shut down a couple of years ago. I
Right,
brought
right,
that up.
right.
That was shut down by the previous council.
Just a couple questions on the same line item. How many ramps do you actually get for 25,000?
Good question, and I'm gonna say it depends on the road. Okay, so, It depends on the condition of the road project itself, because again, if you're doing a road project, my understanding is if you do 50% of a road, you're not required to do the handicap portion of it. We're not doing that. We're saying, if you're gonna do a road, we're gonna incorporate the change to the ramp itself. I don't have an average for that, Mr. Day, I'm sorry, but again, I think it's more dependent upon the condition of the road and the condition of the surrounding sidewalk.
But on average, you're only talking about 2 or 3 ramps tops anyway, right?
For the 25,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably only talking, yeah, oh, I see
I
what
mean,
you're
just
saying.
a-
Oh, okay.
2 or 3.
Yeah, you're probably only talking about a few ramps.
Yeah,
correct.
I do like where Nerman's going with it though, and I know it's just a title for handicap ramps, but it may be like accessibility improvements in general.
Mhm.
Because there are quite a few places around town, we could probably make accessibility improvements, but I don't want to belabor the point.
Or
but I
even a
do think
matching
it's good
program,
idea.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, some kind of grant program or,
So on the same page 9, the first line, I was trying to find on page 8, what it stands for, so 10-204-374-32, budgeted for 20,000 for 2024. I don't see what it is for, so.
Oh, that was that was the new line created, and for the 20,000, that's for the dog park. But, it won't.
Another question.
No, that's fine.
Because you said the dog park was in there, and I think,
Yeah, I didn't know the account is actually created. I could put in a description, and I didn't want to put that line into this year. So once we create next year, it'll go in and it'll say dog park.
And that's a perfect segue, because my question about dog park for later conversation was, can this amount change later in the year if we establish 25,000 is needed, you know, for best practice? Like if we're, you know, I have other questions about dog park, but can that amount be?
our mid-year review. we
Mid-
could
yeah,
add
mid-
money
yeah,
If we
so-
needed to, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the, I mean, so.
We can- yeah, let's
okay,
talk.
so
Is
in
this the
regards
best
to
time?
the
Sorry,
dog
this is
park,
my-
Again, this is what we've done here. This was a ballpark number that we did. I know Mr. Platt had met, and I had met with someone who indicated that, I think what was the cost that he had.
Just the fencing alone was 10.
Right, so we said, okay,
Mhm.
so we kind of said, okay, let's look at this number, something that we could possibly not live with, but finish this project. And to your point, it may be more expensive than that.
Mhm.
It may be less. I know you had some questions about more of the specifics and getting more into what actually might be needed, and we don't have that. We didn't go out and actually go out and bid this at this point.
Mhm.
So this is more of a placeholder.
Okay.
Now we can go out and we can bid it and we can come back, and we don't have to wait till mid-year. We certainly can come back and say, okay, this is the number we have, and either we need to wait till mid-year or, which again is 6 months, or, you know, this is the number we have and we're able to allocate some money for that from another line item that we think we're doing fairly well with.
Okay, well, now that we have, we might as well put it out to bid.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, I mean.
Well, yeah, so,
money already-
That was my suggestion, you know, so we can
Right.
get 2-3 quotes at least, so we can
Right,
kind of compare and see what people offer. And you already kind of answered questions about, you know, research already that was done. My only other concern about dog park is, not concern, question, sorry. Has there been any discussion about alternative locations? I know that there's some residents who brought it up to me before I became a councilman. A location next to Progressive Club. I don't know if there's other locations that have been brought up in the past, but just, has there been conversation in the meetings? About it being
No,
elsewhere?
I think last time I talked with Councilman Smith, you know, that was kind of a nice location because it's a little bit out of the way. Doesn't interfere with any neighbors barking, you know, most of them are kind of in a secluded area.
Mhm.
If you go out to Ellesmere, it's under the DuPont Bridge, you go up into North Wilmington, it's behind the library, there's nobody there.
Mhm.
So that's what it's thinking, I mean, location doesn't matter to me,
Okay.
I mean, just,
The size is my biggest concern about the, you know, if we're trying to do this, you know, right way, and we're trying to get a bit, it would be different for that area behind Progressive versus the Hermitage, because it is significantly different.
the area is behind Hermitage, it's bigger.
Would that, so what, is it to the left of the sign or to the right of the sign where the Hermitage is?
When you go in the driveway to the right.
So would that grass be all the way where the grass is?
Right, you bulldoze that out. Normally what they do is they bulldoze that out. And most dog parks are just mulch.
Mhm.
And that's something we can supply ourselves because we mulch so many trees.
Well, that would be the only thing I would like to research really, because like I would like to see what surface is healthy for dogs, so that we're not spreading diseases and stuff. You know. So,
Well, Jim, you do that, I mean, that's They're mostly mulch throughout the county, right?
Not the county?
And we have, yeah, we have some access to a park planner that we can answer specific
Awesome.
questions to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Ellesmere Dog Park is amazing. I don't know if we can reach out to them and see what, you know. what
That is
they-
a nice part.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, there are some neighbors, but it's kind of out of the way.
And the school is okay with it, like, do we need to reach out to the school as well?
The trust is good with it. I mean, we've got the agreement in the works right now, so. It's work. I mean, like I said, if you would, I think next to the Progressive Club would be too small.
Hey,
Where are we talking about next to the Progressive Club?
behind where the cars park, I'm looking on.
That's not our property, that's the Progressive Club's property. We don't own that.
Okay, that sounds.
Yeah, we don't own that.
My understanding is the Progressive Club owns back to, there's kind of a big tree. And then the space gets narrow as it goes up towards the boathouse, and that space is owned by the trust. But the large, no, majority. And so the large sort of space that might be a suitable shape is owned by the Progressive Club.
I just thought that was, like I said, when we talked to Smith and Toner, it was just a nice location. It's shaded. It's not real hard to maintain. I mean, it's just out of the way. There's parking. I mean, you don't really get too many people to come.
Mhm.
You know, you get 10 people to come, they're there for half hour, they're going, you know, it's kind of a turnover, at least my experience. I said I used 4 or 5 of them.
Okay.
I think Mr. Toner is planning to discuss it. He didn't even want that on, as well as the turnover of the park. I think he was gonna talk about that at the
Okay.
June meeting.
Yeah, no,
We are still waiting for an MOU from them.
Mhm.
So to your point, as far as, so nothing's in concrete.
Mhm. I understand even the Hermitage could be,
Right.
you know,
Right.
I'm gonna go at the end. And I think I have one more last question. On page 8, for playground maintenance. On the second line from the bottom, 10-204-371. You have an increase for the 2024. Is this just to confirm because we're installing new equipment, so this is anticipated cost?
No, you want, yeah, no, it's not in regard to the equipment, it's in regard to mulching. So what we're doing is, we're having it mulched, we're having, what we need to have mulched, end of May into June, and we won't get billed for part of that, but we won't get billed for that until, July. So that's part of that, you know, what we're doing. Now, we've also established a program, with the new Public Works Director, in that what we're doing is, instead of, we're gonna try to every year mulch a certain number of parks. So we'll mulch, say, park X, Y, and Z this year, and the next year, you know, A, B, and C. So that every year now you'll see more of a number for mulch in the budget. But we have more of a program to make sure that we're being consistent with keeping up with it. You know, so from a liability perspective, and just also to make the park, you know, just to keep each park up to date.
And every 2 years is
We think every 2 years, that is when we would have to mulch. In other words, we mulch this park today, and then 2 years from now, we mulch it again.
Okay.
And then next year, we would mulch another park, and then 2 years from now, we would mulch that.
Okay.
That's kind of the program we're implementing.
Oh, yeah, parks equipment question, sorry, for line 10-204-370-60, going from 2,000 budgeted to 77. So just curious about the increase there. The line above the one we just, sorry, yeah. No.
Is that the new playground
That's
equipment
playground.
that's covered by the
Okay.
grant?
Yeah, that's in the budget, so it's gonna be.
Yes, it's good.
Right. It's a what? Oh, no, oh, that's right. No.
Equipment went from two
Oh,
thousand.
the stage.
Right here.
Equipment parks,
Equipment parks,
77,000.
yeah, we added 75.
Oh, okay, my bad.
That's the
Okay,
stage.
that's the stage. Sorry about that.
Stage.
75 that I mentioned.
The band
I
shell.
opened-
Oh, okay,
Right, the band
okay,
shell.
gotcha. And then just one request I had for playgrounds in general. I've seen increased amount of people smoking at a battery playground, not at the other playgrounds, but can we make a sign for no smoking bigger at the entrance of the playground across all the playgrounds in the city? So since we're talking about budget, just to have that.
Yeah, we can do that.
I don't know how to enforce it, of course, but at least if we make a sign a little bit bigger about no smoking. Hopefully it'll deter
Actually,
some.
we just bought a piece of equipment that up. Did you see the new signs Ms. Souter?
No, I didn't.
Okay, we
Oh,
just-
on the car, on the wharf?
Yeah, so
Great.
we just bought a piece of equipment that allows us to make these types of signs.
Okay.
It's relatively inexpensive, but it will certainly allow us to be more efficient when, and react more quickly to these types of situations.
Awesome,
I'll check that out.
awesome. Thank you so much. I do have two more suggestions for how to spend some of the money that Ms. Souter said, and then one of the things that I said in early on. And one is, could we purchase new laptops for meeting purposes, both for this building and for the other building, senior center? Just question, I don't know if that's something that was already budgeted or,
For what,
for the meetings. So like when we bring laptops for the meetings, the senior center.
I guess instead of using binders.
Oh, you mean for council?
No, not for council, for the city staff.
Oh, we are
Laptops
actually,
need updates.
okay, we actually are, we have in our budget, what did we put in there for the budget for, through, Ron? We have, I think we're purchasing,
Yeah,
I don't know the exact number, but we are purchasing new laptops.
I think it was almost $9,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember
Upgrade.
noticing a
Right.
jump in the
Right.
computers.
Correct.
Well, all
Because
the
it was a new
Right.
contract or new
Right.
equipment.
even the PCs, Ron went through and realized that some of them needed to be upgraded in Windows. And some of them were unable, they were an old operating system
Correct.
and would not be upgradable. So he gave us a price and that's worked into
That's what into that
the
number.
computers under
Okay, perfect.
admin.
Right.
Support them after 2024.
Correct.
Okay. So I know this is inefficient when it comes to, utilizing same equipment across multiple meeting spaces, but can we explore to see the quote to keep one laptop at the senior center and one laptop here for the purposes, so that people don't have to take it from the city hall every time they're, going to a meeting. So, for the city staff, sorry. Is that something we can look into price wise? And squeeze?
I think it's about $800 for a new laptop, so I mean, it's not a significant number.
Where's?
and this is the-
I mean, I can
the-
understand if he's secured here, how do you secure the senior center?
Well, I'm hoping there's a closet with that they have a lock on that we can, keep the laptop there as well. I have no idea what the arrangement we have at senior center, but just so that staff doesn't have to even go on a meeting day at all and bring the laptop in. Would that be helpful, I guess, to the staff?
I mean, any type of, anything like that certainly is helpful, but I mean, I don't know that. Exactly.
I know it's not necessary.
It's
I
not
know that. Yeah, I know that. That's why.
Helpful,
That's why
yes,
purpose-
necessary, no.
Right, necessary would be recording equipment.
Yes.
Yeah. And then to that point, my other thing was, is it possible to buy a projector and projector screen for senior center? So that we have that kind of, I know senior center would directly benefit from that, so for their programming.
I looked into that because I was gonna propose it as a budget item. And I asked for an estimate for a projector and screen to show PowerPoints and the kinds of things that developers use and so on. And microphones, so that, and speakers, because people in the back of the room cannot hear. And the guy came out, and Natalie and I walked through with him and looked at everything, and I got the quote today. It was a lot more than I thought it was gonna, just like $57,000. So now that's only one. I wanted to talk to you all before I spent time getting other bids. I don't know if places like Best Buy do that sort of thing or not. He was talking about a retractable screen that went up in the ceiling. Because we don't need a big TV there. What they need is a screen for the projector.
Yeah.
And
I like the idea with the AV equipment in the senior center. Certainly I wouldn't, 57,000, I don't think I could ever support that.
no,
But the county and the state have a vendor Versaline that they use, and you may
Ah.
be able to piggyback off their contracts. I don't know if it
well,
would be
that
any
would be
better or
something
not,
to check,
but I do think it would be nice to have some AV equipment if we're going to continue to meet there.
right? And well, the other thing I was thinking, the
Yeah.
senior center could use it for their
Yeah.
programming
Yep.
too. And they do have wires in the ceiling that were put in for some speakers that don't work anymore, but the wiring is still there, so that's helpful because you don't have to spend money to do that.
Yeah.
And they have a lockable closet. As you come in the door, it's immediately to the right. And there's a rack in there and power where they could sit things. And he was proposing all wireless microphones with rechargeable. Like you take the mics when you're not using them and put them in this stand where they would charge, so you wouldn't have to be constantly messing with batteries. I mean, it sounded like a great system. I was just kind of blown away by the price. But piggybacking on a county contract might cut that considerably.
I think we also have to work out a deal if the senior center is gonna use it, that there's a contract, because when you got multiple people using multiple things and stuff doesn't work, the fingers start getting pointed.
Well, yeah, that would be something we could work out with Natalie, I guess.
And they may be willing to pick up some of the, if there is any maintenance cost or something.
Well, I raised that with her, would they be willing to share the cost? And she said, they're really hurting because of losing that doctor's office. That's not just a
Okay.
service to their members, it's rent.
Rent, yeah.
And unless they're able to rent that space again, she said they can't afford to do anything. They're having trouble making their normal stuff.
I'm done when it comes to general budget.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir.
Can I'm sorry, can I go back to, what Ms. Albert had asked about the miscellaneous, the jump in miscellaneous?
Oh, yeah.
revenue? I did find, it was a check that we received on May 2nd, for a settlement for a class action suit. Didn't have much information. It was $22,414.
Right,
From
right,
PCB, it's like the check stuff.
right. that's
So
right.
we weren't really sure, so we put it in miscellaneous. We weren't expecting. And
And it was in regard to, it was a lawsuit out in California.
And
We
yeah,
received
Long Long
the
Beach
check,
Island, yeah.
and it said that you're part of this classic, or this,
Was
Long
Long,
Beach,
yeah, City of Long Beach.
Somebody
Right.
write down
Montana.
22.
Right, right,
Thank you for depositing.
So it's in the bank.
That's right. I
That's
forgot
what that is. So we didn't bank on that happening
Right.
again next year.
Thanks.
That was a lottery winning.
Mr. Day,
Yes, and I'll try to be quick. And I think Suzanne talked about all the issues on the income side, or questions I should say that I had, so I'm just on the expense side. So I see on the page one, the overtime, our actual expenditures this year was 83,000. Seems like we've progressively gotten higher, and we're budgeting 80. Was there some extremes this year where or are we filling positions that we needed overtime for?
Please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Well, that also is contractual overtime.
Right.
When officers are scheduled to work on a holiday because they work 7 days
Gotcha.
on, 7 days off, an 11.5 hour shift. If they're scheduled on a holiday, they get a certain overtime, and their contract even calls for it. If the holiday falls on their regularly scheduled day off, they also get compensated for that.
Right, and I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but it's also going up too, because if you look in the past few years, we were not, I mean, we've budgeted for 18 folks. Okay, and over the past few years, we've been at 16, 17, so it's a function of how many people we have. And as Kathy points out, the fact that, you got an FOP agreement that, is having increases in salary.
I just wanted to make sure we're
Yeah.
okay with 80.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
oh, I see.
Well, and we did
I was
sit with the chief
We
of
talked to the
police
chief, right?
Okay.
to discuss it, because as newer, lower positions come in, they come in. at a-
Lower salary.
Yeah.
Right, so
lower
their OT is less.
Right.
That's correct.
and if you can staff more,
Right.
no need for overtime.
So I was glad to see the dog park and the band show in there. Come back to that one. So on page 2, under the security cameras citywide, I see last year we spent 71,000 and we're budgeting 65.
Yeah.
I'm assuming last year it was because we installed a bunch of cameras.
Okay, if you recall, as part of, mid-year, I believe, you had allocated cameras for the police, additional cameras for the police. And based on that, they went out and received and bought those cameras. Now, there's also money that we received last year, separate from the monies that I'm talking about now, that came from the state through the reinvestment program. And that's a different set of cameras that are basically on a different set of cameras on the roadway, and we have not put that out to bid. We've been working with the state on that because the types of cameras that the chief has identified for those purposes are pretty, and I can't speak specifically to the difference between them and the cameras we're talking about here. But we've been wrestling with how can we do this? Do we actually have to go out to bid on this, and how can we write the bid? And so that's why that was budgeted last year. It hasn't been spent yet. 70 you're talking about now was spent out of the ARPA funds and he's already purchased it. Does that kind of make sense?
Little
It's a little
complicated.
convoluted, but-
Yep, I think I got it.
It's a lot convoluted, yeah.
So when I assume on the very next line item, body cameras, we were at 6,500 and we are budgeting almost double for 13,400. So is that data storage or?
That was based on the meeting that we had with the public safety staff and what they thought they needed for next year and who needs to have replacement. I think they're trying to get again on a program where they're replacing somebody in a certain rotation.
I know the chief,
400 is not all of it.
Joe, I know at one point the chief, just tour here after a meeting. And I think the body cameras we have work really well, but they don't tie into the state system. And he was switching over. I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, but that's kind of just so that everything's on the same line.
The very next line item at the top of the next page. And maybe somebody asked this already, but I might have missed it. Administrative expense. Last year, we were at 8,500 and we're budgeting 5 this year, 500.
Yeah.
Last year, and he went to 85 when we had.
I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, it's a big jump.
Yeah.
Oh,
70.
That was the legal fees for the workers. Maybe, and then we sent it to the figure for expenses that they haven't budgeted. And from. It was a-
Okay.
Sounds like a one-time thing last year.
Yeah.
It was. Yes, that's was one time.
That's what I said.
It was a training or something.
That's fine. Okay, we're keeping that word. Yeah, that's right. It was a one-time expense.
I think you explained the vehicles already. So, on page 5, salaries. Second line item down, it looks like, we appropriated 415 last year. We spent 334. We're appropriating 415. Why the big difference?
Here he's talking about the police. Oh, well,
Just the general of the salary
I
line.
think
item.
we're at 18.
no, we're not, we still have a couple
We
payroll.
still have a
clips.
couple guys to get.
Okay. So are we 1 short or are we 2 short?
But this is public service, not public safety.
Yeah, are we talking 200?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you're,
Page
you're right,
5,
relative
right?
service, right.
Is this the public work guys? Did we lose some guys and are we trying to hire to replace them? Is that why the salary is back up?
Yeah, we-
Regular salaries,
Yeah.
the 606, 60006.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah,
We just hired the 2 new guys.
Right,
yes, we just hired, two.
Okay,
right,
so that's the.
Yeah.
and we
difference.
still have 3
and we
more,
still have a few more.
3 more
days.
pay.
Oh, okay.
Why the actual is lower than the budget.
Pay cycles in
Yeah.
this fiscal year, yeah.
Right.
So on page 8, the pruning and planting for the trees. It's 15,000. Is that the tree commission or is that us?
Free commission.
Okay.
Okay, and they asked for 25.
Yep.
So if we find money, we'll move money
Well, let
around.
me, if I may, since you mentioned it, okay, if you look at what they've we budgeted this year was 19.5. They're at 11.1. I think there's a couple more. I think they've got a few more thousand that they're gonna be spending between now and the end of the fiscal year. So they're gonna be roughly at 14 or 15,000. The tree planting program that they want is really a great thing, but we're thinking, so they have planted a lot of trees, as you all read in what Mr. Bukolich wrote. And we're not dissuading that, but we think that there has to be some more of a, it can't all be done. I think he talked over a 3-year period, but for him to go out, or for them to go out and plant trees that we can't keep up with from a watering perspective and a maintenance perspective and that type of thing. Now, we're working through that because the 70 or so trees that they've already planted, I think this year he had another 25 or 30 or so. They typically have to be watered, I think, on a 2-year basis. We're still having those discussions with the tree commission. So our thought on it was not necessarily that it's a bad thing to spend or that you shouldn't necessarily allocate money for it, but that the 15 that we have was adequate this year.
Maybe capacity.
And
Right.
that's correct, right? Yeah. So that was kind of my thinking on that.
Yeah, because they said they'd gotten some grants.
They do. I think they get money from the trustees, I believe, as well.
I think they've gone for some other kind of,
And, I'm sorry. And we did the Forestry Service grant, which
I think it was
was 5,000. We applied for that and we worked with them on that as well. Correct.
okay. And I assume somebody's gotten back to them, or will get back to them to explain the reasons that we just can't keep up with the maintenance. We need to spread it out a little more.
Well, we certainly, it's your prerogative, obviously, and we felt, let's go through.
Well, yeah,
this, and
once
then-
we
yeah,
know.
And then we will absolutely, we'll get back with everyone.
Once we
From planning,
fix the
right,
budget,
correct.
yeah, okay.
So the next one I have is on page 10, that's the contributions, just, I feel that we ought to, fulfill the request, that are, short Goodwill and the Historical Society. So my next question is on page 13.
Excuse me, Mr. Day, do you want to be specific with your numbers?
Yes, I feel like we should, fulfill the request completely.
So 30 for
30 and-
Goodwill, 15
and
for
15.
historical.
Sorry.
That's okay.
On page 13, under computer hardware and IT services for admin, it looks like we appropriated 11.3 last year, and we're going to 19.2 this year.
Okay, well, some of that, as Kathy pointed out, that would be the new.
Sorry, I didn't write it down.
Okay. You're a little bit ahead of us. A little bit ahead. Think about that.
Okay,
I'm not actually writing down what everybody was saying until it's actually decided upon.
Okay, all right, well, I'm making some
17
notes, so.
For one,
but this would
For
include,
the computer hardware.
that includes Ron, the upgrades and all.
That's the things you were
Yeah.
talking
Yes.
about earlier.
Yeah.
okay, and that's what I thought, right? I wanted to be clear. Then on page 15, for the temporary labor and the consultant, looks like last year we were at 6,600 and we're budgeting 12. Is that for temporary labor for public works, or is it a consultant for something else?
We had the HR.
That's the HR.
Finance.
Yeah. And, yeah. And actually,
It is the HR.
oh, with the finance consultant, basically, if you need consultation after I retire.
Understood. Got it. Understood.
Which is fine if you don't.
A little bump in the road.
Yeah, we can take that down.
No, that's what we did, right?
Almost done, promise. And I think, the only other thing I had is I think we should be funding Goodwill's request for the shortfall they're having for their SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus order as well to our ARPA money.
And how much is that?
That was 63,000.
Wow. You know, you listen to me sit here for the last 6 years, how much I support them, and I don't have a problem with that, but they just started doing their own fundraiser. We just gave them 400,000 for a boat grant. We're giving them another 30.
We didn't give them 400,000 for anything. That came from the state.
The state,
Yeah, but no, see, that's the misconception. That money went through the city. It just, it
It goes through us.
could have came here. It could have been used for road projects. It could have been used for anything. It didn't have to go to Goodwill.
but
That's what,
wasn't it allocated out of funding for that sort of thing from the river and Denrac and?
no, there's
Oh,
actually,
Denrac would pay.
no,
They wouldn't pay for road repair.
no, Denmark didn't pay for that.
No, that's what I understood.
No, Nicole Poor pretty much spent that money then. She bypassed council and it went there. But that money came from the state. So instead of going to the city of Newcastle, it went to Goodwill.
So you're saying we lost 400 in our
Correct.
grant?
Correct.
That's not accurate.
Yes, it is.
We put in our wish list to them every year, and we can put in $3 million worth of wish list. I believe our wish list was completed last year for everything that we've asked. And that was one of them. So, and again, we can argue this, but what I can tell you is, you know, the police don't have to have bake sales or food trucks out here selling stuff, but the fire department does.
I'm not arguing with you, Joe, but every fire department does. Every fire department has a hole. Every fire department hustles. You know that.
I
I've been
think
in
the
the service
difference
long
that
time.
I have been, and I can see the service and level of service that they provide. It's not like there's no volunteers left. It's paid personnel everywhere. There's not enough volunteers to maintain the service. So frankly, I think we need to realize that we're gonna have to do more and more every year. And it isn't just this council. It's every little city and town and county in the state is gonna have to do something. But I certainly think the level of service that they give is unbelievable.
I'm not arguing that point.
Yep. So,
All right, Mr. Zeltz, you're on board.
Well, believe it or not, most of the line items, everyone else has already hit, so thank you to other people before that, so I appreciate that. I have a couple of general questions. For salaries and things like that for the people that work for us. So is there a standard of living increase that everyone receives, or how does that work?
We have union agreements. We have an FLP, in general, we have a union, we have an FLP agreement, and we have a AFSCME agreement. As far as the folks, the chief has a contract. The two captains have a contract. I have a contract. The folks who don't have contracts, we try to compensate them in a manner that is, I think, addressing your question. Now, we also, as far as a standard no, there's not. There's no standard outside of the union contracts and outside of the contracts that I just mentioned. There is no stipulated standard increase. Okay, now what we will do in 99% of the cases is the folks who don't have contracts, because we'll pretty much go by what the AFSCME union contract is as far as increases go.
But I mean, I seem to remember when we approved the last contract, it had built into it some raises over the terms of the
Yeah, I'm
contract.
sorry, yes. Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Those contracts have
Right.
increases. And
It's
that's
not
why
that
when
they're
you
not
look-
getting raises.
No. And that's why when Mr. Day said, well, look, this is a little higher than, well, there's a lot of things that go into that, including negotiated pay increases. Now, when you're negotiating with a union contract, it's not just the pay, it's the benefits, it's the insurance, and there's so many other things that also go into it, but it's a negotiation. And I think the FOP contract is up for renewal. I think the FOP was a 3-year contract that will be renegotiated next spring. And the AFSCME contract, we're just in the second year. I think we're into the second year of the AFSCME contract, and that's a 4-year agreement.
Okay, excellent. Okay. The only other thing I have is, going through this, I'll be truthful, it's a little painful looking at all these items. Is there a way when there's a huge percentage change that we can get a comment field? So that we can understand what occurred, because it seems like we kind of went through the items that had the huge changes. So is there a way that we can get a comment field in here so that we can see what occurred, what happened, so that maybe we would have maybe less questions?
Yeah.
All right, I have to agree with Mr. Zeltz. I think a lot of things are covered. If anybody wants to make a comment from the floor, feel free.
Oh, may I just
Oh,
throw out one thing first?
absolutely.
I'm sorry, I missed it when I went through. I discussed this with Ms. Carlin and Mr. Bartel, but I was wondering if we wanted to appoint an assistant treasurer. Because I doubt Ms. Carlin is going to continue this for the rest of her life. And it would be someone to help her now. And then when she's ready to retire, that person would be in position and be, Ms. Carlin is so knowledgeable, for somebody to come in cold and try to pick that up would be really difficult. And at the huge salary that I know she.
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
How's
You
that
know,
beach house?
the second beach house, right? So I think if we were to give this new person, 2/3 or whatever of Ms. Carlin's munificent salary, and help them, I think it would help in the transition, whenever that happens. I mean, I don't mean any disrespect or disregard of Ms. Carlin's service, because it's still fantastic, but like I said, and with Ms. Wall's departure, we're gonna have some significant loss of institutional memory, and I think it would be good to help get someone started on that track. It's not something you pick up quickly.
Wouldn't that have to be done through resolution? Since
Yeah,
they
But
became
but we have to
old,
budget for it.
Right, no, I'm just saying,
Yeah. Yeah, the workings of it, I think as long as you fund it, the workings of it as it can be worked out with the solicitor. And it may
Right.
just be a matter of creating that, like I say, I don't think.
Well, that's why I brought it up
I
now.
don't think the doing of it is that big, that hard of a thing. No, it would just be up to council.
to put some-
Right,
right, because when we went from elected to appointed, that's
Right.
what we did.
Right.
We did it by resolution.
right. So I'll just throw that out there as something to put in the budget. I know it's gonna bust the budget big time.
But
I-
as you said, because I've been doing this for a long time, the memory of what has transpired over the years has what contributes to this, what I
Absolutely.
contribute to this.
Absolutely.
Just like
You
the
could
fire, the Goodwood Fire Company, we didn't 5 years ago contribute anything to the Goodwood Fire Company. And I kind of pushed that.
See, I think it's gonna take you some time to help to transmit all this
Yep.
knowledge that you have to a new person, and it'd be good to get started on that.
And
That's
then
my
there
point.
was, then there were the years where we had to borrow from MSC to make our payroll.
We're on bankrupt. Okay, like you said, any comments from the floor? Feel free, just come to the podium, state your name. Is there a sign-in sheet up there?
Sally, the city fair council. Where do we stand on moving forward with the ordinance? What is it? 239 or 539?
There are no rules.
So
No
are we
procedures
gonna
there.
continue as it has been?
Absolutely. That's the will of this council.
And that's okay with everyone?
As we discussed, for now, we're not saying we don't need to revise it. We just don't think we have time to do it thoughtfully between now and the mayoral election on August the 5th.
Well, that was mine. So nothing is gonna, so. I don't know what happened with the election. I think that people should know, be able to know. I know that some of it, maybe it's very confidential. I don't know. I know there was a lot of lawyers involved and whatnot, but I think the people should know because they need to know the truth. It creates a very bad situation in town. And I don't know what everybody thinks of that but so we're just continuing.
Mickey Mouse himself can email and ask for an application.
And how about returning the application?
He can let Minnie Mouse do it.
No, because did they return it in person?
No, I mean, nobody knows there's no clear written rule.
But for example, there was an issue with another candidate, the Board of Election in reviewing the the filings, discovered this, went back to the person and said, you forgot something, and it was corrected. And, I mean, it wasn't anything fraudulent, it was simply, the person thought it had been done and it hadn't been done, and then it was done in time before the election.
Had
So,
he been elected, it would have been a mess.
well, that's why the Board of Elections reviews them. And so that's been our process.
So you don't think, obviously, you don't think that there's enough time?
No, not to do it in a thoughtful manner.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
Ma'am?
On that same topic, they're going to draw the 15 Devil Street. Like Ms. Denton has said, I understand there isn't time for the upcoming mayor election. But can you put it in for after the election for a time that you're going to discuss it?
Sure,
I mean, I
sure,
think if that gets
absolutely.
noted, rather than just saying we don't know when we're going to get it done. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think if you say if the election is in August, that at your September meeting, then you will make arrangements to follow through with it and to give yourself a deadline to be able to have it in place possibly by the end of the year.
Right, there's not another election till 25,
But that-
barring another
But
need for a
that doesn't
special
mean
election.
we can't have it in place now.
No, absolutely, I agree with you, it should be done this year.
Okay, and so to me, because the way you're saying it, well, we don't know when we're gonna do it. I think you need to know when you're gonna set it up. And give a date, and then people have that to follow up.
We could have the first reading at the August council meeting, because that's after the mayoral election.
Okay, I think that would be very good. One last thought, in the early part of the evening, we talked about filing electronically and the things that could go wrong. My thought on that would be, if you do want to include it, to bring it up to where we're living now with electronics and the real world, that you could do something like the absentee ballot. People could register, process, but up to a certain point, and then gives time if there is any problem. It wouldn't be at the deadline, like it has been now. So to me, I think you could build that in and say, yes, you can do it electronically. In my personal opinion, in our small town, if somebody doesn't have the time to come in and do it personally, I mean, it's not the county. The county's a large area.
But the office is only open during working hours. Many people, I mean, when I was working, I left my house at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't get home until 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening at the earliest. I would have had to take time off from work to file. Is that what we want?
People have to take time off to go to doctor's appointments, have to do for other certain things.
Well, they do, but do we want to put that obstacle in their way? Some people don't get paid if they take time
I
off.
don't see it as an obstacle.
That's why we stay late the second to last day. If you're off at 4:30, you got that extra.
I mean, to me, that needs to be considered in the process of how you're going to do it and allow enough time if there is any irregularities that could be taken care of, and allowing someone to file electronically. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Thanks for your suggestion. I think we can absolutely commit to, August reading of this new ordinance that will come up, but as a working dad, it's sometimes difficult to find a time that I might have to go in a building and submit something. So I'm not trying to push back on it, but we should be happy to have multiple candidates like we have for city council, and it was amazing to have 7 interested people wanting to become, take those seats, as well as for mayoral seats. So I think, and whatever convenient way for them is to submit those applications, I think should be something that we can accommodate as a city, unless it's, proven to be a burden, so we can have that conversation with the office, city office to see, but I don't think it should be, because it's so easy to do it nowadays. So anyways, that's my kind of look.
Valerie Leary, 201 Harmony. I'm not even going to comment on the ordinances. I actually want to stand here in support of I believe it was $63,000, Joe,
Yes.
for SCBA for the fire company. As a public service employee, I appreciate the fire company and please appreciate law enforcement. And as Joe has mentioned, there's volunteerism in the fire companies is next to nothing now, and we do have to pay. They have to pay all of their employees, and they have to pay for benefits and everything else that goes along. And since he's a chief, again, you know, he's intimately familiar with this. So thank you.
Yes, Phil Gross, 1301 13th Street. Were any of the cameras that were received, whether it was for the highway or for in the neighborhoods, were any of them installed?
The ones that were received, I believe, were.
Okay, all those were installed.
To my understanding. The ones we haven't bought yet have not been installed, I can assure you of that.
Are you sure of that?
I'm really sure.
Why aren't they installed then?
Doing the best.
As far as the election, I would defer and suggest to the council that one, like whenever I file anything, I go into the office, get a copy, time, date, stamp, then there's no question as to whether it was filed. The only other way that I would suggest the council accept electronic filings is electronic signatures, not just emailed in. The way it was done should never have been allowed to be done, and it should have been reversed. As far as budget items, I firmly suggest and push for the AV system to be paid for the senior center. It's less than $10.5 million. So I think it's an easy no-brainer. As far as the dog park down by the yacht club, not really any houses. It could be used by people coming into the city versus out there where guests, visitors will bring dogs and might want to walk in the park and utilize the dog park there. As far as the expense of it, get sponsors, you know, to offset the costs. That was thrown around a long time ago. As far as funds, how in the budget, because obviously I don't have a copy of it. Does any money go to the partnership and how much? Number two, as far as separation day, is that a line item for this year? Because usually there's been a presentation months before, so that the public could have a general idea of what it's going to cost them.
There's a line for partnership for 2,500.
2,500. What about separation
There's a
day?
grant for 36,000. And this is on the income side. And fees and contributions, 33,000. I don't think separation day costs the city anything, does it?
No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
To balance it out.
okay, so 30.
whatever Advanced Unlimited makes over and above what.
We have an agreement with them that, right, their service.
Right, so they get paid for their services also after the city is taken care
City does not, right.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
of. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You talk about the other things you talked about as far as the balances, or is that something you just want to?
Oh, I thought you were gonna come back to them and,
Well, we can, but we're not really, there were.
oh, sorry.
You have to make a motion to make those changes?
No, the motion is.
There was.
I understand.
Right, right, and so I don't have.
It's okay, Suzanne, go ahead through what you wanted then, so we can.
Basically, I guess what I'm asking is, do you want us to add to the budget all the revenues and expenses that everyone discussed?
Absolutely.
I mean, let me ask you a question. Is it possible? I know that the budget has to be balanced in the end when we pass it. And I know that you adjust the figures for this to make it come out that way, but if you simply put in the increases in estimated revenues we suggested and the increased expenses, and then tell us, okay, you're under budget by X dollars or you're over budget by Y dollars, and then we can figure out how to go from there. Is that a reasonable thing to ask, or is that
Sure.
too complicated?
No, I mean, we can do the math and then give you, at the next meeting, what the outcome was. But typically in the past, we didn't change the budget unless everybody on the council was in agreement with whatever it was, like say you wanted to add the
There's been a lot of
15,000.
discussion about a lot of different things in generality, so, yeah. And that's what we say.
Because before there would be arguments, like say you wanted to add the 15,000 to the revenue, but somebody else said no. So I wouldn't be doing what you wanted, I would be doing what
I understand.
everybody agreed to. So whatever you agree to,
Well,
what I'll
bring
do.
them up and we'll shoot through them. and-
Let's see,
So are we making a motion to?
No, you don't need a motion.
Okay.
because we're not voting, we're
We're not
just so
voting.
she
This
can
is a
rework
discussion.
the numbers.
Can we start on the expense side though? And then we can adjust the income if needed.
But we're not gonna make the numbers balance tonight, I thought. Is that right? They're just gonna plug them in and tell us if we're over or
I
under.
got you.
Sorry.
But that 86 for the self-contained breathing apparatus coming out of ARPA.
I said 63.
63, that's coming out of ARPA though.
That's what they
Okay, so
requested.
that would go in the budget.
I don't know that answer. I don't know.
No, ARPA funds are in the budget, but that would be
Would be a
the
neutral.
way we've done ARPA funds in the past has been done by resolution. Just like when Mr. Martell bought the police cars and trash trucks, it was done by resolution.
Okay, but you're gonna be passing this budget. So that was mid-year, those were
They
mid-year
were mid-year, okay.
requests.
So making
I
sure.
think, if I remember, they were predominantly mid-year requests, and so the resolution was to basically say,
Just the budget.
right, we're gonna adjust the budget, but we're gonna pay for it through these
ARPA
funds.
funds,
So if it's
okay.
in this budget, we don't need a separate resolution, is I think what you're
Yeah, I
saying.
think,
I agree.
yeah, no.
But the money will still come out of
The
ARPA,
money, right, the money will be earmarked, if you will, from the ARPA funds, correct?
right? Because either that or we raise taxes or cut other things.
Correct.
Yeah, Mr. Day.
Okay, so mine were the 63,000 for Goodwill for the SCBA's. Fully funding Goodwill's request at $30,000 and fully funding the Historical Society. That's 15.
At 15.
At 15.
Yeah, I don't think I had any increased revenue or income suggestions
I did have one question.
beyond the grants to the Goodwill
Right.
and the front.
Yeah,
of the-
planting trees, what do we settle there? So are we keeping that 15 because of capacity?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. They
Yeah.
can't, there's no point planning them if they can't take care of them, they're gonna die.
Well, we are actually taking care of them, and so, you know.
That's what I mean.
Right.
We had a guy all day long watering his plants.
And I think the tree commission has some capacity too, to be honest with you. I mean, it seems like, we decreased their budget, I believe, last year,
Yes,
and they still didn't spend it all, which is
that's correct.
so it
Correct.
seems like there's some capacity there too.
That is correct. And that, you're
Not
right,
like
we were at
it's a
19,
part.
correct. We went to 19, there's, yeah,
Yeah.
that is correct.
I did have one question though, if I may, Mr. President. So one of the things that we haven't talked about that I wanted to bring up, and I apologize, it's late in the game, is we had Will Mapco do our transportation study. And, at least DelDOT is going to do a small part of that at Ferry Cutoff and Delaware Street. But we keep hearing the same thing about the cut through traffic. And somewhere along the line, we got to figure out what we want to do up here, whether we're going to do the Dutch Lab that they are proposing up here at the intersection. Third, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. But it would be nice to figure out, like, do we have a game plan? Do we want to do something? Is it something we need to put in the budget now? And I'm not sure. But it is something we continuously hear about, and I don't blame people.
Oh, it is, but that's DelDOT money.
That's state.
Because that's a
right.
state road.
Right, and the way I would answer that is just again from experience, okay, so in 1999 was when they did the last traffic study.
Mhm.
Prior to the one we just did, and in 1999, they did that, in 2010, they were ready to implement what they had decided in 2009. At that point, obviously, it was a whole nother council, they came to council at that time and said, this is what we want to do. And basically, there were public hearings and that type of thing, and the council, based on what was stipulated at those public hearings, turned down that proposal. So, to your point, just if you speak from an empirical perspective, and it was just another 10 years from now. Now, we had a meeting today with Senator Ford, Mr. Platt and I, were represented from the trustees, talking about Route, about 273, whether that should be widened, what the issues are at 13 and 273, and we had those discussions today. So your question is timely, and the answer we got today was, we'll get back to you. And that wasn't a knock on Senator Ford, don't misunderstand me. There was a representative from DelDOT there, and they will get back to us.
When they get the funding.
Well,
They're
they're
working on the
with an
funding,
idea, but
Yeah, they're waiting.
for them to go ahead and fund that and do that, it's a bureaucracy.
And it's what's high on the list.
Yeah, well, and
I mean,
but I also want people in the city to understand and know that, it may be out of our hands, but is that there's anything that we can do to push that along, whether it's, just pushing for the design or writing a grant, or I don't know, whatever the options are. But certainly, I don't want to get to the point where we're another 10 years and a new council says, nah, we're not doing that either.
I would talk to your representative,
Okay.
Mr. Day, and I would
Okay.
say, look, we've had this process and we would like to start looking at how we can implement it. But that is something that is in a political realm, and I think it needs to come from you guys.
Okay. Well, I think Will Mapco did a good job. We had public hearings. It was vetted out. It seems like it's.
Right.
That's
for the situation on
Frank Coke
273
and Darius Brown.
For the situation on 273, I know you had that conversation today, but are they looking for a full fix of it or any temporary fix? I think there's a couple of temporary fixes that could ease the like going into the farmer's market. They can make that lane just a little bit larger first. Things like that could ease the situation and get traffic moving.
They are going, we asked that particular question. First, there's, widening it, as you point out, is gonna be a significant project. And there's gonna be time for them to come back with answers. Looking at Route 13, that intersection, and what they're going to do there, even from just adjusting the lights there. As you know, you're not talking about it's a whole ripple effect down that whole, the whole corridor. We did say, are there some things we can do in the meantime to help alleviate this? Now, there were no definitive answers at that meeting today. They understand, and to your point, I think Mr. Platt had mentioned, similar to what you're talking about with the farmer's market. And so hopefully there will be some incremental steps that will be taken. And in fact, I think Senator Ford kind of put the gentleman from DelDOT on notice, if you will, and said, hey, how about if we try to reconvene in early July so that he can at least come back with some more answers. But anyway, that's.
Well, due respect, let's stay on the budget tonight. I mean, these are good conversations, but let's get through this. At home and.
Council President, but,
Comments from the floor has been shut down. Sorry. Mr. Day, are you finished?
I'm done. That was the item.
Mr. Baca, did you have anything?
Yeah, I wanted to just add the projector screen in senior center in our vote. I don't know what the quote is, but maybe just putting a placeholder for something
Okay.
in a budget. So let me just keep going down through my things. Is today a time we can talk about the housing program we talked about utilizing the existing, or is that just a separate resolution that would have to be passed?
Apple housing project.
The matching funds for curbside that already exist in the budget 25, but we don't
That
utilize
was,
it.
that's a whole different issue.
Okay.
That's solely set up for seniors. I mean, yeah, that's a whole different
So if we're
issue.
gonna keep the 25,000 amount the same.
It's
but
fine.
it's there.
Yeah,
Right, it's there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the trust just gives us, I don't think they've given us any more since the initial.
I guess,
It's ended.
Right, oh, it's ended.
That's
So
correct.
we'd have to renegotiate with the trust.
Okay,
It's a
so-
different thing.
all right, so all the other stuff I have is on the hack application, page 21. Would like to propose to raise that to 100,000 on the revenue side.
Page 21.
Page 21, building / hack applications.
Brings it more in line with the past.
Right.
It's just been, yeah, just more in line with that. Ms. Dotto, you're gonna bring the other two revenues that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I'll bring that. That's what I'm going to.
So plus 20,000 to revenue.
Correct. 30.
30.
Up to 100.
30, right.
And sorry, on expense size, the security line exists for all the boards, right? That doesn't have to be added. It's just in different line items. Okay. I think that's all for me.
Speaking of security, is the security upgrades and everything for the building in this already? Or is that from this past year?
The study of the building
The
upgrade,
study,
No, there's nothing in there.
there's no,
but we budgeted the money
just for the
for
study.
the
Yeah, for
study,
the study.
but that's already,
It's been
that's in
pretty
the,
much done. I mean, that whole thing, you're talking about the feasibility for the municipal complex?
no, the
The
for
existing building.
upgrading to the
Oh,
existing.
Security.
I'm sorry.
improvements to the existing
Oh,
building.
actually, yeah, that is in the budget, yeah.
Okay, I thought it would have been, but I didn't see
Yeah.
it. so-
Yeah, no, that is in there, the 41,000 and the 21,000. Yeah, as part of it,
Okay.
yes. I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
I didn't know. So that's what it is.
Again, it's
Yeah, yes, 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 yes,
$700,000.
yes.
$700,000.
Right.
Sorry.
And you,
I'm done with my
Okay.
recommendations.
all right, and I'm just in the revenue side, because we've been through I think we've covered. On page 21, also the property, I don't think we discussed this, but property tax transfers. We've projected $200,000. Now, this year it was 389, last year it was 623, the year before that it was 918. I know that was the sale of a large property. The year before that was 400. The year before that was 259. So in 2019, it was 259. So it's always been at least $250 and $250,000 in the last 5 years. So I would suggest raising that projection to 250. So that's an additional $50,000. And then in the next line, delinquent tax collection. It's been over $20,000 for 4 of the last 5 years, and we've budgeted 10. So I would suggest adding 5 to that and making the projection 15.
You want to address that?
Um,
When we can do that, but where are our thoughts on that, or as we do a better, as we continue to,
Diminishing returns.
yes.
Okay,
And so, to your point, is it a conservative number? It is. We continue, quite frankly, to do a very good job trying to collect delinquent taxes, okay? But yeah, diminishing returns.
well, that's why I didn't suggest bumping it up more, but all right,
But that's fine. If that's, I'm just saying, that's our reason.
maybe bump it up 2,000, then make it 12. Because the lowest it's been in the last 5 years is 12,810. And the next one, business licenses. That's been ranging from 115 in 2019 to 140 in 2022 or 2023 so far. We've budgeted 125. Would it be going too much out on the limb to bump it up to 130? Raise it by 5,000, because for the last 4 years, it's always been over 125. And then Mr. Zabaka.
Did you say +5?
+5, yeah. The hack, he's already talked about. Oh, and then on the next page on 22, Mr. Zabaka had suggested the special trash collection, the second line, it's always been over $9,000. We've budgeted 7, so maybe bump that up by 2. And I think that's all I have.
I just wanna add on about the projector and all that good stuff.
Oh, yes.
I think we really need to be looking at microphones and also sound. To get a full package.
Right. Well, that's what I had asked for the
Right.
estimate. And Mr. Day, if it's okay, I'll forward you his email with the estimate so that you know exactly what he's including. If you could run that by your county people. That way we can get a
Could you send
comparison.
that to me too? So
Sure.
that we can actually look at it and see what.
I mean, I did it just because I didn't want to bring it to the budget with no number
Right, right,
whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I'm just
you
saying.
don't want us to add 57 to the budget,
No,
but we need to come up.
You
with
need a
number
number.
that's
Right.
Reasonable, or that you would support.
right,
Right.
right.
Just so I can see what you're looking.
Sure, sure. I mean, I think this is fairly high-end equipment. He talked about like the microphones have voting capacity. We don't need that. And I emailed back to him and said, you know, can you pare this down a little bit? It's a lot more than I thought, and I don't know what I might get back from him, but I'll send
Okay.
that off
Yeah,
to
that'd be
both of
great.
you.
Anything else? Make a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All in favor?
I.
Meeting's adjourned.
Not saying we have to get this one here, but